They ran back to the living room, but Ifeanyi was nowhere to be seen. "We need to get out of here," Paul said, grabbing Adaobi's arm. They ran to the front door, flinging it open, only to stop in their tracks. Standing on the doorstep, with a calm expression, was Ifeanyi. Beside him was Mamasi, who looked just as confused as they were terrified. Adaobi and Paul screamed, slamming the door shut and running back to the living room. They clung to each other, their bodies shaking with fear. "What do we do now?" Adaobi whispered, tears streaming down her face. Paul shook his head, unable to speak. The nightmare was far from over. Paul and Adaobi stood in the living room, their backs pressed against the wall, their bodies trembling. Their eyes darted around, looking for a way to escape, but the house felt like it was closing in on them. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Ifeanyi walked in, followed closely by Mamasi. Adaobi gasped, clutching Paul's arm tightly. "No, stay back!" Adaobi screamed. "You're supposed to be dead. What do you want from us?" Paul's voice was shaky as he added, "Please, Ifeanyi, don't hurt us. We're sorry." Ifeanyi raised his hand, signaling for them to stop talking. "Enough of this nonsense," he said firmly. "I'm not a ghost. I'm alive." Adaobi froze, her eyes widening. "What? You're alive?" Paul stammered. But how? We saw you. Ifeanyi walked closer, his face calm but his eyes filled with anger. "Sit down," he commanded, pointing to the sofa. Adaobi and Paul hesitated, but the sternness in Ifeanyi's voice left no room for argument. They slowly lowered themselves onto the sofa, their heads bowed in shame. "You want to know how I'm still alive?" Ifeanyi began, pacing the room. "Let me tell you exactly what happened." Adaobi's hands trembled as she clasped them together. Paul sat stiffly, staring at the floor. Ifeanyi took a deep breath and began his story. "I was in my study, working on a project, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mamasi. She told me to check the CCTV footage immediately. I didn't understand at first, but I trusted her judgment, so I opened the live feed." He paused, his voice growing heavier. "What I saw shocked me to my core. There you were, Adaobi, standing at the dining table with a glass of juice in your hand. I watched as you pulled out a bottle and poured something into the drink. You shook it, looking around like a thief, and placed it back on the table. I couldn't believe my eyes." Adaobi covered her face with her hands, her tears streaming uncontrollably. Ifeanyi continued, his voice steady. "I immediately texted Mamasi, asking her how she knew. She told me she returned from school earlier wanting to surprise us, and she gradually opened the living room door, unnoticed by you, and saw you acting suspiciously. She suspected something wasn't right and decided to alert me." Masi stepped forward, her arms crossed over her chest. "I saw you, Auntie Adaobi," she said, her voice laced with disappointment. "You didn't even bother to check if someone else was around. You were too busy plotting to kill my brother." Ifeanyi nodded. "When I realized what was happening, I told Mamasi to stay alert. I instructed her to wait until you came upstairs and then switch the poisoned drink with a fresh one. She did exactly as I asked." Adaobi's mouth opened, but no words came out. "So, my dear wife," Ifeanyi said, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "you and your boyfriend here thought you had succeeded. But as you can see, I'm very much alive, thanks to my sister." Paul's jaw dropped and he stammered, "You mean, you saw everything? From the start?" Ifeanyi's eyes burned with fury as he turned to Paul. "Yes, everything. And I heard everything too. Your little plan to kill me and run away with my money? It's all on record. The police will enjoy watching it." Adaobi fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Ifeanyi, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know what came over me. Please forgive me." Mamasi shook her head, stepping closer to Adaobi. "Why, Auntie Adaobi? Why would you do this? My brother loved you. He married you, gave you a good life, and treated you like a queen. And this is how you repay him? By plotting to kill him with this lowlife? Adaobi looked up at Mamasi, her face wet with tears. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a mistake. Please believe me, Masi scoffed, her voice rising. A mistake? Ganging up with this man to kill my brother wasn't a mistake. It was evil. Pure evil. And you know what? You won't get away with it. Paul, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, tried to defend himself. Look, I didn't want to hurt anyone. This was all Adaobi's idea. She said she didn't love Ifeanyi. She just wanted his money. I was just helping her. Liar! Adaobi shouted, turning on him. You were the one who gave me the poison. You told me to do it. Enough! Ifeanyi's voice boomed, silencing them both. You're both as guilty as each other. Stop pointing fingers. You planned this together, and you will both face the consequences. Adaobi crawled toward Ifeanyi, clutching the hem of his trousers. Please, my husband, I'm begging you. Don't call the police. I'll do anything to make it right. Just give me one more chance. Ifeanyi stared down at her, his face expressionless. It's too late for that, Adaobi. You didn't think of giving me a chance when you poured poison into my drink. You didn't think of my life or my dreams. All you thought about was money. You and Paul will rot in jail for this. At that moment, the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows, and a firm knock came at the door. Police! A voice called from outside. Ifeanyi turned to Mamasi. Let them in. Mamasi opened the door, and 2 police officers stepped inside. They looked around, taking in the scene. Ifeanyi pointed to Adaobi and Paul. These are the 2 criminals you're looking for. They tried to kill me and steal everything I've worked for. One of the officers stepped forward, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. You're both under arrest, he said, his voice firm. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Adaobi wailed as the officers pulled her to her feet and handcuffed her. Please, Ifeanyi, don't do this. I'm sorry. Paul struggled as they cuffed him, shouting, This is all a mistake. I didn't do anything. The officers ignored their pleas, leading them out of the house. As the door closed behind them, silence filled the room. Ifeanyi let out a deep sigh, his shoulders relaxing for the first time. Masi walked over to him and wrapped her arms around him tightly. It's over, big brother. They can't hurt you anymore. Ifeanyi hugged her back, his voice filled with gratitude. Thank you, Mamasi. If it weren't for you, I might not be standing here right now. Mamasi smiled up at him. You've always been there for me, Ifeanyi. It was my turn to protect you. They stood together, the bond between them stronger than ever. That night, Ifeanyi sat alone in the living room, the dim light from the table lamp casting shadows across the walls. The events of the day had left him shaken, his heart heavy with sorrow and betrayal. He leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling as his mind replayed everything Adaobi had done. His wife, the woman he had loved deeply, the woman he had trusted with his life, had plotted to kill him. The thought pierced his heart like a dagger. He couldn't understand how someone he had given his whole heart to could betray him so cruelly. How did I miss the signs? Ifeanyi whispered to himself, his voice trembling. His thoughts drifted back to 3 years ago, a simpler time when everything seemed perfect. It was a bright Saturday afternoon in Owerri. Ifeanyi had traveled from Abuja to attend the wedding of his close friend, Uche. The event was grand, filled with vibrant colors, cheerful music, and the aroma of delicious Igbo delicacies. Ifeanyi, dressed in a tailored white agbada, mingled with the other guests, exchanging pleasantries and enjoying the festive atmosphere. As he stood by the buffet table, his eyes caught sight of her, Adaobi. She was standing with a group of friends, her laughter lighting up the room. She was stunning, her beauty effortless. Her flawless dark skin seemed to glow, her eyes sparkled with life, and her smile was infectious. She wore a coral gown that flowed gracefully around her, and her presence commanded attention. For a moment, Ifeanyi forgot everything else. His heart raced as he watched her, completely captivated. Summoning his courage, he approached her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady but nervous. "I couldn't help but notice your smile. It's the most beautiful thing here today." Adaobi turned to him, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but confident. "And you are?" "Ifeanyi," he said, extending his hand. "And you?" "Adaobi," she replied, shaking his hand with a warm smile. They talked for hours, the wedding fading into the background as they got to know each other. They exchanged numbers before parting ways, and from that day on, they stayed in touch. In the weeks that followed, they went on several dates, and Ifeanyi fell more in love with her each time. She was everything he had ever wanted, kind, intelligent, and beautiful. One evening, under the stars at a rooftop restaurant in Abuja, Ifeanyi proposed. Adaobi had laughed and cried at the same time, nodding enthusiastically as he slid the ring onto her finger. Their wedding was the happiest day of Ifeanyi's life. The ceremony was elegant and intimate, filled with love and blessings from family and friends. Their marriage seemed perfect. Adaobi was the perfect wife, caring, supportive, and always by his side. But now, sitting in the quiet of his living room, Ifeanyi realized that it had all been a lie. Unable to sit still, he went to their bedroom, opening the closet and drawers where Adaobi kept her belongings. He needed answers, something, anything, to help him understand why she had done this. As he sifted through her things, he found a small bottle tucked away at the back of a drawer. Curious, he picked it up and examined it. His heart sank when he realized what it was. A contraceptive pill. For a moment, he couldn't move. His mind raced as the truth hit him like a thunderbolt. They had spent years praying for a child, crying together, visiting doctors, and holding on to hope. All the while, Adaobi had been taking measures to prevent it from happening. "So this is what she's been doing," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "All this time." He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bottle in his hand. A wave of emotions crashed over him, anger, sadness, disbelief. He felt like a fool. He had loved her so much, trusted her completely, and she had betrayed him in more ways than one. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them away, refusing to let himself break down. Just then, the door creaked open, and Mamasi stepped inside. She had been worried about her brother and wanted to check on him. "Big brother," she said softly, sitting down beside him. "Are you okay?" Ifeanyi looked at her, his face tired and worn. "I don't know, Mamasi. I feel like my whole life has been a lie. I gave her everything, and she gave me nothing but pain." Mamasi placed her hand on his, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I know it hurts, but you're not alone. I'm here for you, and we'll get through this together. Adaobi may have betrayed you, but you're still the kind, loving man I've always looked up to." Ifeanyi nodded, his heart aching but comforted by his sister's words. "She stopped us from having children, Mamasi," he said, his voice breaking. "We kept praying and hoping, but she was preventing it all along. How could she do this to me?" Mamasi shook her head, her eyes filled with sadness. "Some people don't value what they have until it's gone. But don't let her actions define your life, Ifeanyi. You deserve better, and you will find happiness again." He sighed, leaning back against the headboard. "I just don't know how to move forward from this." "One step at a time," Masi said firmly. "You're strong, Ifeanyi. You've always been strong, and no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." Ifeanyi gave her a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Masi. I don't know what I'd do without you." As the night deepened, Ifeanyi felt a glimmer of hope amidst the pain. Though his heart was broken, he knew he had the strength to heal and rebuild his life. With his sister by his side, he was ready to face whatever the future held. Moral lesson: be careful of the people you trust and surround yourself with. Betrayal hurts deeply, especially when it comes from those closest to you. Always strive to love genuinely and reciprocate the love and care given to you. True relationships are built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. Thank you for watching this story on Afro Tales TV. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and share with friends and family. We have more beautiful stories coming your way, so subscribe and stay tuned. See you in the next one.